The heat came off the New Guinea tarmac in waves. April 1943. The war in the Pacific was a meat grinder, and at the edge of Dobodura Air Base, past the operational bombers and maintenance hangars, there was a place the pilots called the Boneyard. This was where aircraft went to die. Captain Reese Harlan stood in the tall grass between gutted hulks, his flight jacket slung over one shoulder. He was 28 years old, tall, lean. His face had the hard angles that came from too many hours squinting into the sun at altitude. Behind him, the base went about its business. But nobody was looking at Reese Harlan. They had learned not to. In 6 months, he had been transferred between 5 squadrons, not because he couldn't fly, he was one of the best pilots in the theater. The problem was simple. Reese Harlan did not believe that following stupid orders was the same thing as being a good soldier. He had been written up for insubordination 4 times. He refused to salute officers he didn't respect. The last squadron commander had put it plainly. Excellent pilot, terrible soldier, recommend immediate transfer. So here he was, no crew, no plane, the man nobody wanted. He walked deeper into the boneyard until he found it. Tail number 41-2666. The B-17 sat alone, tilted where landing gear had collapsed. Oil stained the ground beneath the engines. Bullet holes stitched across wings and fuselage. Someone had spray-painted a crude 666 on the tail in white, and below it, Bad Luck Bird, Old 666. 7 crews had flown this bomber. 4 killed in action. 3 wounded so badly they never flew again. Men whispered it was cursed. That climbing into Old 666 was writing your own death certificate. Reese circled the aircraft slowly. The left inboard engine had a rod punched through the cowling. The tail section was wrinkled from a cannon blast. Inside smelled of old smoke and hydraulic fluid and something metallic that might have been blood. He climbed to the cockpit. The pilot's seat was gone. Wiring hung loose. Sunlight streamed through a dozen holes in the roof. Reese sat on the floor where the seat should have been and ran his hand along the control column. "You got a death wish, Captain?" Chief Warrant Officer Wilson stood in the waist section, 60 years old, grease embedded in his palms. "Just looking," Reese said. Wilson climbed forward. 7 crews, 4 didn't come back, the other 3. I've seen men blown apart by flak, but the men who flew this bird, something was worse. You believe a plane can be cursed? Wilson was quiet. I believe some machines are built wrong. Send men up in a coffin with wings, they're going to die. Reese stood and moved to the nose compartment. The forward gun mount was empty. He looked through cracked plexiglass at the airfield beyond. It's not cursed, he said. It's just poorly armed. Standard B-17 has 13 guns. Most are .30 caliber. Pea shooters. The nose only has a single gun the bombardier has to move by hand. When a 0 comes head-on at 300 miles per hour, that's suicide. Wilson frowned. That's how they're all built. I know. Reese looked around the gutted interior. Give me 2 months and a blind eye. Sir? This plane, I want it. Wilson laughed. Old 666, Captain, this bird is condemned, supposed to be scrapped. But it hasn't been yet, because nobody wants to touch it. I'm telling you what I think. This bomber isn't cursed, it's unfinished. Give me 2 months, access to the boneyard, and I'll turn this wreck into something that can fight. Wilson stared. The colonel will never approve. Then don't ask him. Wilson rubbed his jaw, looked around, finally sighed. I didn't see you here, Reese smiled. Didn't see you either, Chief. Word spread. A crazy captain was rebuilding the cursed bomber, working at night, scavenging parts, building something that violated every regulation. Reese needed a crew. No established crew would fly with him. He had a reputation, so Reese found men who had nowhere else to go. First was Second Lieutenant Dominic Val, 26 Pennsylvania, broad shoulders, quiet voice. His original crew had been killed on a mission he'd missed due to sinus infection. Since then, he'd waited for reassignment. Nobody wanted a bombardier carrying the memory of a dead crew. Reese found him in the chapel, rosary beads threaded through his fingers. "You believe in curses?" Reese asked. Valet looked up. "I believe in bad luck, and I believe sometimes bad luck runs out. I'm putting together a crew for old 666. I heard." "You interested?" Valet was silent. Then he stood. "My crew died because the nose gun jammed. Zero came head on, and we couldn't stop him. I've had 9 months to think about that. If you're building a bomber that can fight back, I'm your bombardier." They shook hands in the chapel. The rest came quickly. Sam Torres, the radio operator who argued with colonels, the Kowalski brothers, James and Robert, waist gunners who refused separation. Garrett Cross, a tail gunner from Montana whose only sin was being too good a shot. Doc Harrison, 32, top turret gunner, considered too old for combat. Misfits, cast-offs. Reese gathered them behind the maintenance hangar. Old 666 has a reputation. Men died in her, but not because she was cursed, because she wasn't armed well enough. We're going to fix that. He led them to the boneyard. Old 666 sat in moonlight, skeletal and waiting. For 6 weeks, we work at night. We don't ask permission. We scavenge what we need and build this bird into something that can survive. "Build it into what?" Doc asked. Reese smiled, hard, warrior's smile. "A Frankenstein monster, something the enemy has never seen." The work began. They started with guns. Standard B-17S carried 13, 10.50 caliber, 3.30 caliber. The .30s were the problem. Too light. Couldn't punch through a zero. Japanese pilots knew this, exploited it. Reese and Doc walked the boneyard by flashlight, searching wrecked P-38 fighters. They found twin .50 caliber machine guns in a crashed Lightning. Installing them was brutal. The B-17 nose wasn't designed for heavy weapons. Valet and Reese spent 3 nights fabricating mounts, welding steel brackets, reinforcing structure. When finished, old 666 had twin .5s in the nose, but Reese wasn't done. He had an insane idea: install a fixed machine gun he could fire himself. "Bomber pilots don't shoot," Doc said. "They fly." "I know the rules, but think. When a Zero attacks head-on at 300 miles per hour, the bombardier has maybe 2 seconds. If I aim the entire plane and fire a fixed gun, we double firepower on the most dangerous vector. It'll add weight, throw off balance. Command will never approve. Command doesn't know we're doing this." They installed a .50 caliber M2 Browning salvaged from a wrecked B-24. Reese mounted it to the cockpit floor, angled slightly up, trigger-rigged to the control yoke. He sighted it with a white cross painted on the windscreen. Modifications continued. Extra 50-50s in waist positions, reinforced tail with more ammunition storage, armor plating scavenged from destroyed tanks bolted to the fuselage interior. By late May, old 666 looked like something built by a madman. Guns bristled everywhere. Armor made it squat heavy on landing gear. Reese counted 19. 19.50 caliber machine guns on a bomber designed for 13. 800 pounds over maximum weight. The engines would strain. Fuel consumption would spike. Handling would be sluggish. But if it worked, old 666 would be the most heavily armed bomber in the Pacific Theater. June 10th, they fired the engines. The sound was beautiful. All 4 Wright Cyclones caught, roaring across the airfield. Reese felt vibration through his boots. Valet in the nose grinned like Christmas morning. "She's alive," Valet said over intercom. "She's more than alive," Reese said. She's ready. That night, Reese stood alone beside old 666, looking at the tail number, 41-2666. The bad luck bird nobody wanted. He thought about men who died in this plane, about crews going down because they couldn't defend themselves, about the manual and regulations and officers who believed procedure was more important than keeping men alive. He made a promise. If he ever got the chance, he would prove them wrong. The chance came June 15th. The morning briefing was tense. The intelligence officer tapped a map. Bougainville. Every pilot went still. Bougainville was a fortress. Japanese had radar, anti-aircraft batteries, an entire squadron of elite Zero fighters. We need photographs. High-resolution reconnaissance of the airfields. We need to know where their bunkers are, where AA guns are positioned, how many planes are on the runway. What's the escort? There is no escort. The mission requires flying straight and level for 20 minutes directly over target. Any escort would be engaged immediately. The recon aircraft goes in alone. That's suicide. The room erupted. Men shouted. Chairs scraped. Nobody would volunteer. This was the kind of mission that got you killed. The colonel stood. I need a crew by 0600 tomorrow. If I don't have volunteers, I'm assigning one. Reese stood. Every head turned. The eager beavers will take it. The colonel stared. Captain Harlan, you don't have an aircraft assigned. We'll take old 666. Dead silence. Captain, old 666 is condemned, flagged unsafe for flight. We rebuilt it. I don't care if you painted it gold. That aircraft is grounded by direct order. You are not authorized to fly it. Reese met his eyes. Then court-martial me when I get back. The colonel's jaw worked. He needed a crew. Needed someone willing to die for photographs. If that plane crashes on takeoff because you overloaded it, I will personally see you spend the rest of the war in Leavenworth. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Then you have your mission. Wheels up 0800 tomorrow. Dismissed. That night, the eager beavers gathered in barracks. Nobody spoke much. They cleaned guns, checked gear, wrote letters they wouldn't mail. Valet sat with his rosary, praying quietly. Reese found him near midnight. You don't have to go. None of you do. I'm the one who volunteered. Valet looked up, eyes calm. You'd fly alone? If that's what it takes. Valet smiled slightly. You're crazier than they say, Captain. He stood, tucked away the rosary, held out his hand. We're your crew. Where you go, we go. They shook. One by one the others came. Each made the same choice. Each knew what they were walking into. At 0400, they walked to the flight line. Old 666 sat waiting in pre-dawn darkness. Ground crew stood at a distance watching. Nobody helped, nobody wished luck. They just watched in silence as the eager beavers climbed aboard the cursed bomber. Reese settled into the pilot's seat. Valet took his nose position. Others moved to stations. Reese's hand went to the starter. He paused. Through the windscreen, first pale light touched the mountains. He could see jungle, airfield, vast empty sky waiting. Somewhere over Bougainville, 17 Japanese pilots were climbing into Zeros, 17 of the best fighter pilots in the world, and coming to meet them would be one battered, rebuilt, supposedly cursed B-17, flown by misfits who had nothing left to lose. Reese smiled. He hit the starter. The engine coughed, caught, roared. One by one, the others came to life. Old 666 shook, vibrating with barely contained power. Tower, this is old 666, requesting clearance for takeoff. Long pause, then, old 666, you are cleared. Godspeed. Reese released the brakes. The bomber rolled forward, picking up speed. At 80 knots, Reese pulled back. Old 666 lifted into the air. The bad luck bird was flying again, and this time it was going to war. At 25,000 feet, the air was thin enough to kill. Old 666 climbed through clouds over the Solomon Sea, engines straining against 800 pounds of armor and guns. Inside, temperature was 40 below zero. Frost crystallized on instruments. Reese's breath came out in white plumes. 0800 hours. June 16th, 1943. Below, ocean was hammered blue. Ahead, Bougainville rose like a dark tooth. Pilot to crew, 20 minutes out, check guns, check oxygen. When we hit the island, we're going to be there a while. Acknowledgements came back. Valet in nose, Doc Harrison in turret, Sam Torres at radio, Kowalski's in waist, Garrett Cross in tail, all breathing the same thin air, all watching the island grow. Reese's hands rested light on the yoke. The modified bomber flew heavy, nose down. He trimmed constantly, fighting weight distribution. But engines held, all four roaring, pushing old 666 toward a target, bristling with guns and fighters. Reese looked at the white cross on his windscreen. His thumb brushed the trigger controlling the fixed point 50 caliber between his feet. Nobody had done this before, turned a four-engine bomber into a fighter. Command had banned it. Engineers called it suicidal, but Reese had watched too many bombers die because they couldn't defend themselves. Today he was going to change that. Pilot to Bombardier. You ready, Dom? Valet's voice came steady. Twin 50s loaded and charged, waiting for company. You won't wait long. Bougainville filled the windscreen. Green mountains, dense jungle, and hidden beneath canopy, 50 Zeros and the pilots who flew them. Reese leveled at 25,000 feet. Opened bomb bay doors. Camera equipment was running, clicking frame by frame. To get the photographs, old 666 had to fly straight and level for 20 minutes. No evasion, no defensive maneuvers, maximum exposure. Reese settled in and waited. Bogies! Garrett Cross's voice, sharp. 12 o'clock high. Jesus, there's a lot of them. Reese looked up. High above, silhouettes against deep blue, small shapes peeling off patrol altitude, turning toward the lone bomber. Zeros, Reese counted. 5, 10, 15, 17 Mitsubishi A6M fighters against one bomber. Count confirmed. 17 Zeros inbound. Stay sharp. He watched them organize. Disciplined. Veterans. 6 straight at nose. 5 left. 5 right. 1 high watching. They knew what they were doing. Standard playbook for killing B-17S. Attack from front where bomber was weakest. Pour fire into nose. Kill bombardier. Kill pilot. Lead 0 rolled into dive 300 miles per hour, coming straight down the throat. Valet's hands tightened on twin .50s. He could see the 0 growing, see muzzle flashes sparking from wings. 20mm shells zipped past, exploding behind with black puffs. Valet held fire. Wait until you can't miss. 400 yards. 300. In the cockpit, Reese did something no bomber pilot had ever done. He turned into the attack, shoved yoke forward, kicked right rudder, skidding the 20-ton aircraft toward the diving fighter. Nose dropped. White cross lined up with Zero's engine. 200 yards. The Japanese pilot must have realized something was wrong. Reese pressed the trigger. The fixed .50 between his feet erupted. Deafening. The cockpit shook. Armor-piercing incendiaries lashed out, tracers marking a line. Same instant, Valet opened fire. Twin .5s roared. 3 streams of heavy rounds converged on a single point. The 0 flew into them at 300 miles per hour. Catastrophic. The fighter didn't just take damage, it obliterated, engine shattered, cockpit disintegrated, wings tore away. What had been a sleek aircraft became expanding debris and fire, falling burning toward ocean 5 miles below. The pilot never bailed out. 1 second alive. Next, vapor. "Guns!" Reese shouted.
That's how it's done! The remaining 16 broke formation. For one moment, confusion. This wasn't supposed to happen. The B-17 nose was a dead zone. Confusion lasted 3 seconds. Then they adjusted. They came from everywhere at once. 4 Zeros dove at nose from different angles. 2 swept left waist, 2 right, 3 circled for tail. Flight leader stayed high, coordinating. Sky turned to chaos. Old 666's 19 guns opened up simultaneously.
The sound was like standing inside a foundry. Deafening, the entire airframe shook. Spent brass rained onto the floor, hundreds of casings bouncing and rolling. Valet fired controlled bursts, traversing left and right, tracking targets flashing past at impossible speeds. His world narrowed to ring sight and triggers and zeros that kept coming. One fighter attacked straight ahead. Valet put a 3-second burst into its propeller hub. Engine seized, black smoke poured. The Zero rolled inverted, went into flat spin. "That's 2!" In the waist, Kowalski brothers worked like a machine. James left gun, Robert right. They'd grown up hunting together, shot like brothers, anticipating each other's movements without speaking. A Zero tried slipping between them, both fired at once. Converging .50 caliber streams caught the fighter at wing root. Wings separated with bright flash. Zero tumbled sideways, disappeared into clouds. "3 down!" But Japanese weren't running. Professionals, veterans, they pressed fury. They came low, high, from sun, from below where most bombers had no defense. But old 666 wasn't most bombers. Garrett Cross in tail fired so fast his barrel glowed cherry red in freezing air. Calm, methodical, Montana boy who learned shooting elk at 500 yards. He led a fighter 2 plane lengths, squeezed trigger, watched tracers chew tail section. Zero's rudder disintegrated. Plane yawed hard. Right, spun away. 4! Reese flew the bomber like a man possessed. Skidded sideways when fighters came from beam, pulled climbing turns that made airframe groan. Used rudder to throw off aim. A Zero dove from above, cannons blazing. Reese kicked left rudder, dropped right wing. Bomber slid sideways through air. Zero's shells passed through space where old 666 had been. Fighter overshot. Doc Harrison in top turret caught it with burst from twin .5s. Smoke poured from engine. It peeled away, trailing fire. Still 12 Zeros left. They stopped attacking one at a time, started coordinating. 2 feinted from one angle while 2 attacked from another, trying to overwhelm gunners, find a gap. Then they found one. Zero came from 2 o'clock low, masked by sun, while another dove from 12 high. Valet tracked the high one. Reese lined up fixed gun on a third target. The low Zero fired. A 20mm cannon shell hit the nose compartment. Plexiglass exploded inward. Shell detonated inside with white flash and world-breaking crack. Shrapnel filled the compartment like metal hornets. Valet was thrown backward, hit bulkhead, slid down, blood spreading across flight suit, hit in stomach, neck, face pale. In cockpit, Reese felt something punch through fuselage and slam his left leg. Pain was instant, blinding, absolute. He looked down. His left leg was destroyed. Bullet or shrapnel had hit above knee, shattered bone. Flight suit, dark with blood. He could see white bone fragments through torn cloth. Another impact. Right wrist, tearing through tendon and muscle. Hand spasmed open. Yoke tried slipping from grip. Instrument panel shattered. Glass sprayed his face, cutting cheek, forehead. Blood ran into left eye. Old 666 lurched, nose dropped, started falling. For one moment, vision went grey. Pain trying to drag him to unconsciousness, body screaming to let go. Stop! He grabbed Yoke with good hand and hauled back. Bomber shuddered, groaned, came level. Reese blinked blood from eye. Left leg useless. Right wrist shredded, could barely feel fingers. But he could still fly. "Pilot to crew," he said through gritted teeth. "I'm hit. Still flying. Check Dom." Scramble in nose. Sam Torres climbed forward, saw Valet crumpled against bulkhead. "Dom's down. Bleeding bad." Valet stirred, opened eyes, blood running from mouth corner. Looked at Sam, then passed him at 0, lining up another pass. Japanese pilot saw guns silent, saw bombardier position empty, came in close, confident, kill shot. Valet pushed Sam away. "No," Valet said, wet, thick. Sam tried holding him. "Dom, you need gun." He crawled, actually crawled on hands and knees through his own blood, back to twin .5s, hands slick, red, grabbed gun grips, pulled himself upright. 0 at 400 yards, Valet's vision tunneling, strength draining, but he could see ring sight, find trigger. 300 yards, held breath, 200 yards, squeezed. Twin guns roared one last time. Tracers reached across sky, caught 0 in wing root. Metal tore, wing folded, fighter snap-rolled, fell spinning, trailing smoke and debris. Valet collapsed over guns. Sam caught him, lowered him to floor. Dom, stay with us." But Valet's eyes were already distant, looking at something far away. Lips moved. Sam leaned close. "Tell Father Michaels. I'm sorry." Missed confession. Valet smiled, just a little, then light went out. In cockpit, Reese saw it through broken bulkhead, saw Valet fall, saw Sam cradle him. Something cold and hard settled in Reese's chest. Left leg gone, wrist destroyed, face cut to ribbons, instrument panel shattered, hydraulics leaking, old 666 bleeding out like he was. 11 zeros still in the sky. Reese looked at his watch. 10 minutes combat. Mapping run required 20. Halfway done, he could turn back, push nose down, run for clouds, try making it home with partial photos. Smart move, sane move, move that would save lives. But then Dom would have died for half a mission. Reese was done with half measures. "Pilot to crew, we're finishing the run, full coverage, another 10 minutes straight and level." "Captain," Doc's voice from turret, "you're hit. Plane's shot to hell. We can abort." "No." "Sir, I said no." Reese tightened grip with good hand. "Dom didn't die for partial photos. We're finishing. 10 minutes. Can you do that?" Pause. Then acknowledgements came. "Tail gunner, affirmative. Waist guns, we're with you. Top turret, let them come." Reese banked old 666 back toward Bougainville. Zeros couldn't believe it. Bomber full of holes, smoke trailing, nose shattered, men fallen inside, yet turning back toward target. Impossible. Insane. Japanese flight leader called reinforcements. More fighters scrambled, but they needed time to climb. For now, 11 zeros against one dying bomber. They attacked with everything. Old 666's guns never stopped. Kowalski's burned through ammunition, barrels glowing. Garrett fired until hands cramped. Doc rotated turret in constant arcs, and Reese flew, one hand, one leg, half blind with blood in eye. Flew while destroyed leg hung useless, shattered wrist screamed. Flew because that was what he did, what he'd always done. Bomber shuddered as rounds punched through. Tail took hit after hit. Cannon shell blew whole size of dinner plate in port wing. Airframe coming apart. But guns kept firing. Zeros kept falling. Sam Torres, who'd left Dom's body, took over twin .5s. Never trained as gunner, but pulled triggers, watched tracers fly, and when Zero crossed his sights, he held down triggers until fighter broke apart. Cameras kept running, clicking, recording, mapping every inch of island. Reese looked at camera timer. 5 minutes. 4, 3. Vision fading, going grey. Body shutting down from blood loss. 2 minutes. Zeros swarming. Desperate, angry, lost. 5 of their number to single bomber, wanted revenge. 1 minute. Reese held yoke with grip gone numb. Couldn't feel fingers, couldn't feel legs, could barely see. Camera timer hit 0. Mapping complete. "Photos done!" Sam shouted. We got them all!" Reese pushed yoke forward. Old 666's nose dropped into dive. Bomber fell like stone, picking up speed, engines screaming, altimeter unwinding. 20,000 feet, 15, 10. Zeros tried following, but low on fuel now, low on ammunition. American bomber diving at suicidal angle. 1 by 1, Zeros broke off. Turned back toward Bougainville. Last one waggled wings. Salute. Respect for enemy who fought beyond reason. Then gone. Old 666 was alone. Reese leveled at 5,000 feet. Air warmer, thicker, easier to breathe. Silence was shocking. 40 minutes of gunfire and engine roar and cannon cracks. Now just drone of remaining engines and wind whistling through bullet holes. Reese looked at compass, shattered. Radio, dead. Instruments, half gone. Pilot to crew, damage report. Responses came slow, tired. Tail barely attached, still here. Starboard gun jammed, port out of ammo, alive. Top turret functional, hydraulic fluid everywhere, leaking. Radio destroyed, DOMS. Sam's voice caught. "DOMS gone, sir." Reese closed eyes. "How far to base?" Sam did math without instruments. 600 miles, Captain, 4 hours in this condition. Reese looked at destroyed leg, at blood pooled on cockpit floor, at shredded wrist. Basic field medicine. New blood loss had maybe an hour before passing out from shock. 4 hours to base. Math didn't work, but math had never worked. Math said old 666 should be scrap. Math said 19 guns would make it too heavy. Math said 1 bomber couldn't survive 17 zeros. Reese had spent his career ignoring math that didn't account for human will. He wasn't starting now. "Then we'd better get started." He pointed nose south, toward New Guinea, toward home. Began the longest flight of his life. Behind 5 zeros floated in water, sinking slowly. Ahead, 600 miles of empty ocean waited. And in cockpit of a bomber shot 187 times, a pilot who should be dead tightened his good hand on the yoke and refused to quit. Hour 1 was the hardest. Reese's left leg had gone from blinding pain to distant throb. That should have been relief. It wasn't. Shock was setting in, his body shutting down non-essential systems. Cockpit floor was slick with blood. His blood. Pooled around boots, congealing in cold air. Every time he moved his right foot on rudder pedal, the only one that worked, he heard the wet sound. Doc Harrison climbed down from turret to help, tore strips from his own shirt, tried tying tourniquet around Reese's thigh. Hands shaking, blood kept coming. "Captain, you need morphine. The pain—" No, I pass out, we crash, no morphine." "Sir, you're losing too much blood. I need you back on that turret in case more zeros show." Doc stared, then nodded slowly, climbed back. Reese was alone with pain. He focused on small things, vibration of yoke in good hand, sound of engines. 3 now, port outer coughing black smoke, horizon line through cracked windscreen. Small things, concrete things, things keeping him anchored to consciousness. Solomon Sea stretched below, endless blue, completely empty. If old 666 went down, nobody would find them. Ocean would swallow the bomber without trace. Reese refused. Vision starting to tunnel, grey, creeping at edges. He blinked hard, but grey kept returning. "Captain," Sam's voice. "You still with us?" "Still here?" "How you feeling?" Reese laughed, came out as cough. "Like I've been shot." "How's the crew?" "James took shrapnel in leg. Robert's shoulder torn up. Garrett's mostly deaf from guns. I'm okay. Doc's okay." Pause. "DOMS still, I know." They'd wrapped Dominic Val's body in tarp, secured it in radio room. No time for ceremony, no time for grief. That would come later, if there was a later. "We're going to make it, sir. We're getting you home." Reese didn't answer, watching oil pressure gauge on engine 2, dropping fast. He reached for shutdown lever with damaged right hand. Pain lanced up arm, but he pulled anyway. Engine 2 coughed, sputtered, went silent. 2 engines now. Old 666 shuddered, lost altitude. Reese pulled back on yoke with good hand, fighting to keep nose up, but plane was heavy. All that armor, all those guns. Weight that saved their lives now trying to drag them into ocean, dropped from 5,000 to 4,000, then 3,500. "We're losing altitude," Garrett called. "I know, lighten the load, throw out everything not bolted down." Crew moved fast, ammunition boxes out through waste gun ports tumbling toward water, equipment, spare parts. Kowalski brothers even threw out their guns, weapons they'd used to shoot down Zeros, because every pound mattered. Bomber stopped descending at 3,000 feet. Reese settled in, tried not thinking how much farther they had to go. Hour 2 was worse. Reese's hands had gone numb. He could see them on yoke but couldn't feel them, grip starting to slip. Had to consciously tell fingers to close, hold on over and over. Left leg completely dead weight. Piece of meat attached to his body serving no purpose except to leak blood. Grey at edges getting darker, closing in. Soon all grey, then black, then gone. He started talking to himself, out loud, anything to stay awake. Airspeed 90 knots, altitude 3,000, heading 185, fuel, real, low. He looked at fuel gauges, needles deep in red, burned through fuel at horrific rate during combat, now running on 2 engines, drinking what was left. They might not make it. Thought came with perfect clarity. Might run out of fuel 50 miles from base, ditch in ocean, drown. Reese pushed it away. Airspeed 90 knots, altitude 3,000. What was heading? Couldn't remember. Looked at compass, but compass was shattered, needles spinning uselessly. Flying blind. "Sam, I need a heading. I can't." "Compass is gone." 185, Captain, due south. Keep sun on your right." Reese looked right. There was sun low on horizon, late afternoon. They'd been flying 3 hours. 1 more to go. He wasn't going to make it. Knew that now. Body was done.
Finished. Running on fumes like the engines, but he could get them close. Close enough someone would find wreckage. Close enough crew could bail over land instead of water. Close enough. He held yoke and flew. Hour 3, hallucinations started. Dominic Valle sat in co-pilot's seat. Reese knew it wasn't real. Knew Dom was wrapped in tarp in radio room. Dead, cold. But there he was anyway, looking solid and real. Rosary beads in hands. "You're doing good, Captain," Dom said. "You're not here." "I know, but you need someone to talk to, so here I am." Reese's head lolled. He forced it upright. "I got you killed, Dom. You gave me a chance to fight back. That's all any of us wanted. Should have aborted. Turned back when Zeros showed." Dom smiled. "You know that's not true. We got the photos. Invasion's going to work because of those photos. How many Marines are going to live because we didn't abort?" Reese didn't answer. "Thousands," Dom said quietly. "Thousands of men walking off those beaches alive because you were too stubborn to quit. So don't you quit now." Reese blinked. When he opened eyes, Dom was gone. Co-pilot's seat empty, but words stayed. "Don't quit." He tightened grip and flew. Hour 4. New Guinea coast appeared on horizon like a miracle. Green, solid, real. "Land!" Sam shouted. "Captain, I see land!" Reese tried responding, but mouth wouldn't form words, tongue thick, lips numb. He managed a grunt. "Dobadura's 20 miles inland. Can you make it?" Reese looked at fuel gauges. Both pinned empty, engines running on vapor. Minutes left, maybe less, 20 miles.
He pushed nose down slightly, trading altitude for distance, gliding more than flying. 15 miles, 10. Port inner engine coughed, sputtered. Died, one engine left, old 666, flying on single right cyclone and pure stubbornness. 5 miles, Reese could see airfield, runway, hangars, safety, but couldn't see clearly. Vision almost completely grey, just tunnel of light in center and tunnel shrinking. "Sam," Reese whispered, "I can't see." "What?" "I can't see, I'm blind." Awful silence on intercom. Then Sam said, "I'm coming up." Sam Torres climbed into cockpit and saw the blood, saw Reese's destroyed leg, saw how Captain's head was lolling forward. "Jesus Christ. Talk me down, you're my eyes. Tell me what instruments say." Sam looked at shattered instrument panel, half the gauges gone, but found altimeter, airspeed indicator. 2,000 feet, airspeed 80 knots. Too slow. Need 90 for landing. There's no throttle left, sir. We're out of fuel. Reese's hand moved to where throttle should be, found nothing. Engine running on fumes. "Then we glide," Tower screaming over radio. Sam could hear through static. "Old 666, you are not cleared for landing. Divert to Ta. Tell them we're landing. Clear the runway." Sam keyed radio. "Tower, this is old 666. Captain's dying. We're landing. Clear the runway. Now." He could see fire trucks and ambulances scrambling below. 1,500 feet, airspeed 75, coming in too steep. Reese pulled back on yoke. Bomber shuddered, leveled slightly. 1,000 feet, airspeed 80. Doc Harrison climbed down from turret, grabbed yoke from right side, 2 men flying one plane, Doc providing strength where Reese had none. 500 feet, trees dead ahead. "Pull back," Reese whispered. They pulled. Old 666 cleared trees by 10 feet. 200 feet, runway in sight, airspeed 90. Flare. They pulled back together. Wheels hit dirt, hard. Old 666 bounced once, twice. Landing gear screamed. Tail section barely attached after dozens of hits started tearing away. Bomber settled onto runway and rolled. No brakes, no hydraulics, no way to stop. Just kept rolling. Past tower, past parked aircraft, past fire trucks chasing it. Runway ended. Old 666 rolled into grass beyond, slowing, finally coming to rest in field 100 yards from jungle. Last engine coughed and died. Silence. Sam sat in co-pilot's seat, hands shaking, unable to believe they were on ground. "Captain, we're down. We made it. We're home." Reese's eyes were closed, head fallen forward onto chest. "Captain!" Reese's eyes opened, just a crack. "Dom?" "Dom's gone, sir, but we got him home. We got everyone home." Reese smiled, just a little. Then passed out. Medics found him still strapped in pilot's seat, good hand locked on yoke in death grip. Had to pry fingers open to get him out. When they carried him past old 666's fuselage, one medic stopped counting bullet holes at 150. Final count came later, 187 holes, 5 cannon shell impacts, wing spar severed clean through, tail section held on by single strip of metal. Flight engineer who inspected wreck said, "This plane should have fallen apart in mid-air. Physically impossible, it flew 600 miles. But it had. 3 days later, Reese woke up in base hospital. His left leg was still attached, held together by pins and surgical wire, and sheer determination of doctors who'd wanted to amputate but couldn't while he fought them in his sleep. The doctors said he would never walk without crutches. Reese proved them wrong. Every day for 6 weeks he forced himself out of bed. Pins in legs screamed, shattered bone ground against itself. He'd make it 3 steps before collapsing, soaked in sweat, shaking with pain. Next day, 4 steps. Doc Harrison came to visit, found him on floor, face down, having fallen during attempt to walk the ward. "Captain, you need to rest." "I need to walk, I need to fly, can't do either lying in bed." Doc helped him up, became his spotter. Every day they walked the hospital corridor, 10 steps, 20, 50. By August, Reese could walk 100 yards with just a cane. Doctors were amazed. They'd never seen someone fight through that kind of injury with pure willpower. But Reese knew the truth. He wasn't walking for himself. He was walking because Dom couldn't. Because Dom had died defending him. And only way to honor that was to keep moving forward. The eager beavers came to see him one by one. James Kowalski with a limp, Robert with arm in sling, Garrett mostly deaf but alive, Sam and Doc Harrison bruised and exhausted but whole, except Dom. Dom wasn't coming. They sat with Reese and didn't talk much, just sat. Brotherhood didn't need words. On the 4th day, Colonel Hayes walked in with a folder. "Captain Harlan." Reese tried sitting up, failed. "Sir?" Hayes pulled up chair, opened folder, spread photographs on bedside table. "Reconnaissance photos from your mission. Analysts have been going over them for 72 hours straight." Reese looked at images, every airfield on Bougainville mapped in perfect detail. Every gun emplacement, every bunker, every aircraft. "We counted 47 planes, 23 bunkers, 17 anti-aircraft positions. This is the most complete intelligence we've ever had on a Japanese stronghold." Hayes paused. "Invasion is scheduled for November. Because of what you did, we'll know exactly where to hit them. Marines are going to walk onto those beaches with their eyes wide open." He closed folder. "Analysts estimate you saved between 2,000 and 3,000 American lives, Captain." Reese closed eyes. 2,000 lives for one dead bombardier, for one destroyed leg, for one bomber shot to pieces. The math worked. "There's more." Hayes pulled out second folder. "Your unauthorized modifications to Old 666. Aviation Bureau has been very interested." Reese tensed. "Am I being court-martialed?" "No, Captain, you're being vindicated." Hayes opened folder. Inside was technical drawing of B-17. But this B-17 had new feature. Chin turret under nose. Twin .50 caliber machine guns in remote-controlled mounting. This is the B-17G. Production starts next month. 8,000 units on order. Every single one will have nose turret based on your design. Aviation Bureau is calling it the Harlan configuration. Reese stared at drawing. "You were right," Hayes said quietly. "The manual was wrong. Bombers need to be able to fight back from head-on attack. It took you breaking every rule in the book to prove it, but you were right. And now every bomber crew in this war is going to have a fighting chance because of what you built in that boneyard." He stood to leave, then paused. "Captain, there's someone here to see you, from Boeing." A civilian walked in, 50s, engineers bearing, carrying blueprints. "Captain Harlan, I'm Richard Sullivan, Chief Engineer, Boeing Seattle plant." Reese nodded weakly. Sullivan set down the blueprints. His hands were shaking slightly. 6 months ago, I was part of the team that condemned Old 666. I signed the paperwork that said it should be scrapped. I was following specifications, following the manual, following procedure. He looked Reese in the eye. "I was wrong. We were all wrong. We condemned that plane because it didn't meet our standards. But our standards were killing men. You proved that. You took our scrap and turned it into the most effective defensive platform in the theater." He spread out the blueprints, the B-17G design. "Sir, you embarrassed every engineer in the Air Force. You showed us that we'd been sending men to die in planes we designed by committee, by regulation, by everything except combat reality. And you did it by breaking every rule we'd written." Sullivan's voice caught. "I'm here to say thank you. And I'm sorry it took Lieutenant Valet dying to make us listen." He left the blueprints and walked out. Reese stared at the ceiling for a long time after that, holding Dom's rosary that Sam had given him. Vindication felt hollow when your best friend was dead. Pennsylvania, July 1943. Reese stood on the porch of a small house in Allentown, leaning heavily on his cane. His leg was still in a cast. The pins holding his shattered bone together ached in summer heat. He knocked. A woman answered, late 20s, dark hair, red eyes from crying. She was holding a little girl, maybe 2 years old, on her hip. "Mrs. Valley?" She stared at him, at the cane, at Captain's bars on his uniform. "You're Captain Harlan." "Yes, ma'am." She didn't invite him in, just stood in doorway, holding her daughter tight. "Dom wrote about you in his letters. He said you were the best pilot he'd ever flown with. He said you gave him a chance to fight back." Reese's throat tightened. "Ma'am, I came to tell you. I know how he died. The telegram said he died heroically at his post defending his crew. That's true. Did he suffer?" Reese looked at her, at the little girl watching him with wide eyes. He thought about the truth, about Dom bleeding out in nose compartment, about pain, about those final minutes. He lied. "No, ma'am, it was quick." She nodded slowly, then reached into apron pocket, pulled out a rosary. Same rosary Dom had carried on every mission. "They sent this back with his things." She pressed it into Reese's hand. "He would have wanted you to have it." Reese stared at beads. "Mrs. Valley, I can't." "Captain Harlan, my husband chose to fly with you. He could have requested transfer, could have refused the mission. But he believed in what you were doing. He believed men shouldn't die because the planes they flew couldn't defend them." She wiped her eyes. "The letter from War Department said the mission saved thousands of Marines. Is that true?" "Yes, ma'am. The photos we took, they're planning Bougainville invasion around them. Dom's sacrifice is going to save thousands of lives." Maria Valley looked down at her daughter, then back at Reese. "Then he died doing exactly what he wanted to do, and I'm grateful he had a captain who fought just as hard as he did." She closed the door, gently. Reese stood on porch for a long time, holding Dom's rosary, before turning and walking back to the car. He would carry that rosary for the rest of his life. The medal ceremony took place in August, on the parade ground at Dobadura. Entire base assembled. Reese stood, barely, leaning on cane, left leg, still held together with pins, in front of reviewing stand. Beside him was photograph of Dominic Valley, and Valley's Medal of Honor, pinned to frame. A general Reese had never met, read citations. "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty."
Ye words washed over him. Reese wasn't listening. He was looking at Dom's photograph, that slight smile Dom always wore. Rosary beads in hand, they pinned Medal of Honor on Reese's chest. They pinned one on Dom's photograph. Only time in United States Army Air Force's history that 2 men from same crew received Medal of Honor for same mission. Eager beavers stood behind Reese, each wearing Distinguished Flying Cross, most decorated bomber crew in Pacific Theater. When it was over, Reese limped to Dom's photograph. He stood there for a long time, looking at his friend's face. "We did it, Dom," he said quietly. "We finished the mission." November 1st, 1943. Bougainville. Reese wasn't there when Marines hit beaches, but he read after-action reports. Landing Force had used his photographs to map every Japanese strongpoint. They knew where bunkers were, where gun emplacements were, where Zeros were hidden in jungle. They had gone in with eyes open. Casualty projections had estimated 40% losses in first wave. With Reese's intelligence, actual losses were less than 8%. 3,200 Marines walked off those beaches alive who would have died if mission had failed. A Marine captain wrote to Reese months later, "Sir, I led the third wave onto Beach Red. We were supposed to walk into a meat grinder.
Instead, we walked onto a beach where our artillery had already taken out guns that would have killed us. My men are alive because you and your crew flew a suicide mission and refused to quit. I don't know how to thank you for that. I don't think there are words. Reese kept that letter for the rest of his life. The war went on. Reese recovered enough to fly again. 50 more combat missions, each one in newer B-17, each one equipped with chin turret bearing his name. Each one coming home because Nose was no longer death trap. Letters arrived from bomber crews he'd never met. Your designs saved my life. We got jumped by fighters head-on and Nose turret saved us. I'm going home to see my kids because of what you built. Letters kept coming. Dozens, hundreds. By war's end, over 2,000 airmen had survived attacks that would have killed them in older B-17 CES. The Harlan configuration worked. Old 666 was scrapped. Too damaged to ever fly again. They cut it apart, melted it down. Aluminum became pots and pans, became siding for houses, became 1,000 ordinary things, but tail number plate was saved, along with one of the fixed nose guns Reese had installed. 47 years later, Reese Harlan stood in the Air Force Museum in Ohio. He was 75 years old, still walking with cane, still carrying limp from shattered leg that had been held together by will as much as steel. In front of him, mounted on wall, old 666's tail number plate, his Medal of Honor, Dom's Medal of Honor, a photograph of the eager beavers. Below, a plaque. Old 666, the Frankenstein bomber. B-17E tail number 4, 1-2. 666, June 16, 1943, Bougainville. The plane command banned, the pilot who defied orders, the crew that refused to quit. 17 Zeros engaged, 5 destroyed, 187 bullet holes, 600 miles flown while dying. Resulted in the B-17G Harlan configuration, estimated 2,000 plus airmen saved. Captain Reese Harlan and Second Lieutenant Dominic Valle, Medal of Honor. The Eager Beavers, most decorated bomber crew in USAAF history, built from scrap, flown into legend. A young airman approached, saw Kane, saw old man staring at exhibit. Did you know them, the crew? Reese looked at photograph, at Dom's smile, at faces of men who had flown into hell with him and come back alive. Most of them anyway. Yes, he said, I knew them. What were they like? Reese was quiet for a long moment. They were men who decided that following the rules was less important than doing what was right. They were men who refused to die in a flying coffin. They were men who believed that if the system was broken, you didn't complain, you fixed it with your own hands. He touched plaque with his cane. They were the best crew I ever flew with, and they saved thousands of lives by breaking every rule in the book. Young airman nodded slowly, looked at tail number plate, at Medal of Honor, at photograph of 7 men who had refused to accept impossible odds. Old 666, he said. The bad luck bird, Reese smiled. No, the luckiest plane in the sky, because it taught us that a machine is only as good as the men who refuse to let it fail. The young airman looked at Reese more carefully, at Kane, at Way he stood. Sir, you're him, aren't you? You're Captain Harlan. Reese smiled. Colonel Harlan, retired, but yes. I read about you in training. They teach your mission at Academy now. Required reading for all bomber pilots. Do they? Yes, sir. They call it the Harlan Protocol. When regulations conflict with crew safety, trust the crew. Reese looked back at display, at faces of his men, at Dom's photograph. The crew always knows, he said quietly, but listen to them, not to the manual. He turned to leave, then stopped. The Eager Beavers, we still meet. Every June 16th. There's only 3 of us left now. Sam Torres, Garrett Cross, and me. But we meet at Dom's grave in Pennsylvania. We drink a toast, we tell the old stories. Me, he smiled. And we thank God we flew with men who refused to accept that death was inevitable. He walked away, leaving young airmen standing alone before legend of old 666. Dom's rosary was in his pocket, where it had been every day since Maria Valle pressed it into his hand 47 years ago. 17 years later, Colonel Reese Harlan died peacefully in his sleep. He was 92 years old. He had outlived every member of the Eager Beavers. In his hand was Dominic Valle's rosary. On his bedside table was a photograph. 7 men standing in front of a battered B-17, grinning like they had just beaten the devil himself. Because they had. At the funeral, over 300 people attended. Former bomber crews, Marines who had landed on Bougainville, engineers from Boeing, the entire surviving class of B-17 pilots from the war. They buried him with full military honors, and they buried Dom's rosary with him, because some promises last forever.